Thank you. Bendiciones.
Hey,
How
I don't
are
know
you,
why it's not letting
señorita?
me show my face. What's going on with this?
You can't show your face. It's not letting you.
Isn't it just saying audio only? Child, I don't know how to work this. This TikTok. Let me see. Oh, I see. Okay. Let me see. There we go. Hey.
Is
Can you
it
see me
is it
now?
letting you?
There we go. Hey.
Hi. How are you?
I'm doing good. You look so gorgeous.
So do you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Ladies and
Thank
gentlemen, I'm not trying to be rude. I'm looking at the questions here. So when you guys see me look down, it's because I'm looking at the questions. Okay. So um, let's jump to it. Ladies and gentlemen, I want my special guest to introduce herself. Um,
Hello, hello.
First of all, I want to tell you thank you. Thank you for joining me on this topic that I think a lot of us, when we first jump into this practice, we have a lot of misconception when it comes to misas and what they are and who can conduct them, who does them, and all this. So I think this is an amazing topic, and I appreciate you for joining me. So I'm gonna let her introduce herself. I'm gonna go on mute, and then we'll start the live.
Yes, thank you for having me. I was really excited to get on to talk about this topic. So my name on this app, I'm known as Chrysalis Sun, but my name is Latoya. I am in Olorisha, crowned Yemaya. I'll be 5 years this year, very much a baby in the Lukumi tradition. Um, I am an espiritista. I've been doing that longer. I've been practicing that for the last 8 years. But my gift of mediumship is something I've always had. So ever since I was young, that's always been a thing. But as far as getting into Espiritismo and like training that, it's been within the last 8 years. I currently am in Atlanta. I know people can jump in the comments and say everything they want to say about Atlanta. I know I live here. I deal with it all the time. I have a botanica here, and yeah, I'm just happy to be on and to be able to talk about this. So thank you for having me.
And that's something that I didn't put in my questions, but I do want to talk about it at the end of the video because this is someone that I trust. So a lot of people who ask me about, do you know somebody in Atlanta? Do you know somebody in Atlanta? We all know that scamming is all over, and we speak about this all the time. So we know that it could happen in Cuba, it could happen here in the state, it could happen in Miami, because we all know that everybody knows that Miami is the capital, right? When it comes to the country, it's the capital of everything, but there still can scam you. But unfortunately, Atlanta has a bad reputation, right? And this is a person that practices all these practices that we do, and it's someone that I trust. So if you guys are in the Atlanta area, I know a lot of people have asked me, when are you going to go over there, this and this and that. She conducts misas, so it's not that she is just claiming the title, she is hands on. So please make sure to hit the follow, and any information you want that you guys are in that area, go to her, okay? And if she can, she got amazing elders that could also help and guide you to what you need. So,
Absolutely. And I see that some people in the comments that have been to my misas, so they can vouch for me too.
yeah, because we know Atlanta's a little wild right now. We know Atlanta's a little wild. So I don't want to say, but I think everything is right now, but it is very sad, Latoya, and we've spoken about this privately. It is very sad because I feel that the priests that are in Atlanta that are very good, in my opinion, y'all got to work double because that city has such a bad name right now that it's scary for a lot of people, right? Like it's especially Misas because it's a wild thing that's going on right now with the Espiritismo. So the fact that, people that are really good, that live there, I believe they have to work double. That's my opinion. And
We do.
it's something I spoke with when I went over there with one of the elders that I was speaking with. I was like, y'all gotta work like double to do all this, because it's kind of crazy. But you mentioned something that I want to start off. And this is something that is not in my questions, but you said it, and I think this is so important to just talk a little bit about it. Even though you have been practicing Espiritismo for 8+ years, you literally said it. Your mediumship started way before that. What is your intake and your opinion on people who say that anybody could be a medium, anybody could have gifts? What's your opinion on that?
That's such a hard one because it's like it's that question of nature versus nurture, and so you can train intuition, but you can't train mediumship, like in my opinion, right? So I'll just speak from my own experience. Like I've had prophetic dreaming since I was a child. Like I would see things and speak things since I was a child. My mom has a lot of stories about, me reading people at 5, 6 years old, even, and my son now, my son's 3, he has that gift as well. And so I have that as a gift, but then there are some members of my family that they have intuition, they've got discernment, but they don't have that particular gift, And I've seen it with other people when people come to Misas or they come to me to help, they're having spiritual awakenings and they're, having all these psychic things happening and, they're needing guidance, it's always the case that like, no, this is like something that was in them that they've always had to some degree. And then now they just need the training, versus intuition. I mean, like there's certain things that you can build off intuition, like learning how to read cards or, certain types of divination that are just straight intuition, and things like that. Those are gifts. Those are skills that could be, honed, that anybody can pick up. Like anybody can pick up tarot cards. Anybody can pick up oracle cards, etc. But not everybody can sit down with a glass of water and a candle and talk to mortals.
No, I
So
agree.
that's my take on that.
I agree. Let's start off with, in your opinion, when you do misas, your godchildren, what do you explain to them when they ask you, what is a misa? How can you explain that to new beginners? How can you explain this to Black Americans, that this is a culture that it's new to them? How can you word it? What's your interpretation of what a misa is, and how do you explain that to your godchildren?
That's a great question. So especially bringing in the piece about Black Americans, because most of most of my misas are Black, like blackity black black. Which, that's a whole other conversation that maybe later, as far as just the ways I tailor my misas because of that, because of the spirits that come into the misas. But I try to keep it simple. I tell people, it's a mass, like a spiritual mass. Kind of like the seance without the gimmicks. That's the best way, easiest way for me to put it in a way where people can conceptualize what it is. But I basically tell them that it is an opportunity for mediums to gather to practice their mediumship in a safe environment with certain protocols in order to connect with and elevate your spirit guides and your ancestors. That's like the simplest way. And it's interesting because for me, because I have a lot of Black Americans that attend my misas, I have a lot of people who are leaving the church, right? That don't want anything to do with the church or anything. But yet,
That's a whole
misas
life. That's a whole separate life.
right. So they're wanting to leave the church and get into this spirituality, but then they're sitting in misas where we're doing Catholic prayers and the hymns and the songs and the things like that. And so having to kind of reintroduce that in a way where they're not triggered by it. But yeah, that's how I explain it. You know, this is just an opportunity to, one, practice your mediumship, and two, to elevate and connect with your spirit guides and your ancestors.
What is your advice? Because this is something that a lot of people come to me, Latinos and Blacks. It's not just because there's a lot of Latinos with church traumas. What do you advise someone that tells you flat out, yeah, no, I don't want to do no prayers. I don't want to see no cross on no table. I don't want to see no rosary. What is your biggest advice for them to understand that that is also part of Espiritismo? How can you, what's your advice to those individuals?
I'm honest. I tell them the same for them. Like, if you're coming in, like, I mean,
That
because
part.
ultimately, what it is, you know, you know, so, you know, I mean, I'm real. I'm like, we can't do this practice without that element, you know, so I'm very honest about that. However,
Yes.
I explain to them the why. You know, I explain why do we do the why do we put the crucifix? Why do we put the saints on the table? Why do we do the prayers? Because we're the relationship that we have with our spirit guides, it is interdependent, right? And we're building that relationship with them, meaning that we have to also acknowledge the things that those spirits recognize, or that was important to those spirits. So we can't go into this practice with, oh, it's all about me and how I feel and what I don't like and what I like. It's like,
Yes.
nah, because that's not how you build a relationship, you know. And so I
Yes.
explained to them, but also it's those, as much as, you know, people get upset and triggered and the issues that they have with the institution of church, the teachings of like Christ consciousness and like a lot of the concepts within those practices are really truly elevated. They're elevating. And so, you know, a way for us to elevate those spirits and to also make sure that we're only calling in certain spirits, which is a whole other conversation.
Yes.
I explained to them, this is the reason why we do these things. And also, it is tradition. It is a tradition at the end of the day. You know, we can't new age espiritismo, because if we do, it turns into something that the spirits that we're trying to communicate with don't recognize. And if they don't recognize,
Yes.
they're not coming. They're not communicating.
And it's also, I add everything that you said, it's pretty much hand on hand with what I say. But I add to that that by us practicing Espiritismo, it also is a form of healing a lot of the traumas that our ancestors went through. Whether they were Latinos, whether they were Black, whether they were Asian, it doesn't matter. It was certain things that they lived, certain things that they went through, that by us doing these prayers, by us, practicing this, we are also elevating and helping them reach a level of elevation that it's going to help not only their spirit, but it's going to help our generation that's coming from us, our children, and going down that hill. So I agree with you 100% on that. Let's get down to and let's break down what a misa is. One of the questions that I asked here that I added is, and this is a question that a lot of people ask me, who can go to misas? Do you have to be initiated to be going to misas? Is this for anybody? What's your intake on that?
So, as far as I'm concerned, it's for everybody. Even though it's kind of like a paradox with misas. It's even though there's a lot of Christian themes within misas, it is a non-denominational practice, meaning that no matter what you do religiously, you can. I've had Muslims attend misas. You know what I'm saying? Like, that have no initiations in any ATRs. You know what I mean? So for as far as I'm concerned, anyone and any age, you
Yes.
know, My son, because he's showing signs of his gift early on, my son's been in Misas with me since he was 6 months. I encourage children to come. So I've had as young as, children as young as like my toddler age up to teenagers up to 60, 70 year olds attending
That's
misas.
awesome.
It's open to any ethnicity, any religious background, any we all have ancestors and spirit guides, so
Los
so that as far as I'm concerned, like it's open to everybody.
conducting the misa. This is a question that somebody asked me a couple days ago when I was on a live. Who conducts a misa? Because people have, for example, us in Cuba, we change words all the time. We've done it with in Lukumi, and we do it in multiple practices that we practice. You know, when we use the term espiritista, a lot of people get upset because espiritista is just someone who practices espiritismo, if you look up the term. But for us, we really changed the words espiritista, medium. We use it both the same. How many mediums, how many espiritistas are supposed to be in a misa? Because this is something that was asked to me a couple days ago. What's your opinion on that? When you do misas, how many espiritistas are actually conducting? Not the ones that you are developing and training, but are you the only one conducting this misa?
No. And for me, well, so I can conduct a misa by myself. I don't want to conduct a misa by myself. um, so for me personally, at least two. I mean, because I've seen misas where only one person sits at the table. But I prefer to have with my misas to have myself and then another one of my god siblings,
Correct.
or at the other side of the table. Now, if my elder's in town and we're having a misa, then I defer to him, and then my elders sit at the table.
I agree.
Um, so whenever there's a spiritista that is older than me or is an elder, then I defer and give them the option to head the table out of respect. But for at least two, for me, in my opinion. And then
Because that's something that a
um,
lot of people have asked me. Me, myself, when I get lifted to do misas, I do them by myself, and I have I always go with someone, and my
right.
godchildren are the ones who do the prayers. I've done misas by myself. It is very, it can be a little overwhelming because it's a lot of energy. So you're pulling more. Um, but I agree with you. If you could get two, that's a blessing. Definitely a blessing.
Especially for me, because I'm a mount, so it's I don't like going to anything by myself because of that. I need someone there that can tend to my spirits if they come.
I do too. I agree. Okay, this is where the fun questions start. What is your intake? We all know that if I lift you to come to my house and do a misa, I have to give you a derecho. Whatever you're asking for, from $2 to 3,000, if that's what you're asking, if that's your derecho. There's a huge wave right now, especially in New York City, because I haven't heard of it being done elsewhere. If it's being done elsewhere, it hasn't reached my ears. But in New York City, in the East Coast right now, there's a huge wave of people charging everybody that attends misas. What is your intake and your thoughts on that? Because that we all know that is new. That's not something that never happened. So, what is your opinion on that they're doing?
I'm sorry, I started laughing because my husband walked in, and when he heard you say that they're charging for misas, he was like, "Wow." So you can imagine from my face and everything, I don't agree to charge for misas. This is I and yeah, that had well. I've only heard of a few people or houses charging for misas in Atlanta. And then when they did, it was some outrageous amount, like 200 a person. It was, it was a crazy amount. I've only heard of that happening a few times. Me, I don't charge for misas. My elders, they I wasn't taught to charge for misas. Now I do ask that people bring something for the table. A lot of times we eat afterwards. I ask people to bring food, for us to fellowship after. I will tell people, like, hey, if you couldn't bring flowers or cigars and you want to cash at me, that's fine, but it's not a requirement to walk through the door. Now, if I do a coronation misa, or like someone wants me to do an investigation misa just for them, I do charge for that, but that's because I'm lifting mediums, and I'm because there's costs. But as far as for me, for my open regular misas, I don't charge for several reasons. One, it's not necessary. I have my own space. I have a botanica, so I don't have to rent a space or anything like that. All I'm doing is just having my store open for a couple of extra hours after store hours. So yeah, I don't believe you should charge for misas for why? For what?
And the reason I'm asking this question is because when I put this on my platform, I had maybe one or two, not a lot of people, but maybe one or two individuals say, well, by charging them, they're going to get a message. So might as well charge them. I see that. This is my opinion, and I want you to tell me what you think. In my opinion, if I was to do an open misa, and I'm going to charge $100 per head, $200 per head, whatever they're charging, that to me is a scam, because you are already programming in your head that you have to automatically tell something to that person. Because if I'm paying $100, you got to tell me something. You got to tell me at least the color of my panties. At least something. So in my opinion, that's where I see it as a scam, because when you go to misas, there's times that Edgun is not going to tell you anything, because you are okay health-wise, private life, personal life, work-related, everything is overall good. So now by charging, you're forcing yourself to kind of have to lie, because if Edgun doesn't say something, you're going to have to lie to them. So what is your intake on that when they're saying, well, everybody's going to get a message? What is you as an espiritista, do you believe you could program Edgun to, like, hey, there's a timer, 5 o'clock, we got to start talking? Like, what's your intake on that?
Not my Martha. Like, shit, if my Martha ain't got nothing to say, she ain't got nothing to say.
Yeah, exactly.
No, you're right. You're absolutely right. When you commodify misas in that way, then it is a certain obligation. There's a certain expectation. And, once you open up the misa, the spirits, they run the show. And you're absolutely right. Like, I've had people come to Misa specifically wanting to get a message and then leave pissed because the Muertos had nothing to say to them, And I'm gonna tell you, my Muerta, she's very keen. Like, she can spot the people that are coming to get a free reading, and those people she won't have, it'll be radio silence. But then sometimes it's not always about the message. Sometimes you need to just sit in the energy. Sometimes your spirits just need to hear the prayers, hear the songs. Sometimes you need to just come and get a cleanse at the Boveda. Like, it's not always about the message itself, But yeah, that is an issue. And at that point, like, I give readings. At that point, just book a reading.
Lose.
At that point,
lose. And something that I wanted to add on to that is the fact that you just said it right now. The time, and this is something that we have spoken a lot during my lives. What is your opinion on people putting times on misas? Well, it starts at 5 and it's going to end at 5:30. Because that's something that never existed. That has never existed. You can more or less estimate and tell your guests, hey, it might take maybe 3 hours. It might take 4 hours. Estimate that. Maybe if it takes less, great. but you could give them like an average or an estimated time. But these people that are conducting misas one day back to back, do you believe as an espiritista can really do that? Can you do back to back misas in one day? What's your thought on that?
Not I don't, that's a lot of energy. That's a lot of energy. If it's a real misa.
If
It
it's a
really
misa where you have to clean a person, you know how much drain, like your energy is very very draining. You're tired. I'm trying to figure that out because that you do see a lot in Miami, and they're criticizing that a lot. That a lot of
yeah.
people are doing back to back misas because it's all about this. But I've always wondered, like, is it really spirit giving these messages, or is just people pretending? At this point, because that drains the person a lot. You
It
know,
does.
so
It does. No, I agree. I don't do back to back misas. As a matter of fact, my open misas are once a month. For my open meet, and even with that, I cap it. I don't allow any more than 20 people, and even that is a lot.
it's a lot.
And then sometimes people will request an investigation misa, and I may do one additional misa in the month in addition to the open misa. But those are easier because they're smaller, they're not open, and it's more trained mediums there because it's an investigation. But no, and you definitely can't put a time. As a matter of fact, even with my misas, I tell people 7 to 9, but we ain't never ended at no 9 o'clock on the dot. Like I probably need to, change that because I do know that, when we've had situations of mountings, the spirits will come and then they'll go always before midnight, for us. So I know the only thing I can say is that our misas will you'll at least get done before midnight. But yeah, like I've done misas where we're done in like an hour, hour and a half, and I've had misas where we're in there for about 4 or 5 hours. And so there's no way that you can put a time cap on that, and then energetically, there's no way that you can do back to back misas. Not like in one day. I don't even like to do multiple misas in a week. I
I
don't
get
even like when
drained.
it's
I,
draining. I
I
don't even
get
like when we do
drained.
ceremony.
I
Like
get
if my
very
elder comes and yeah, like when my elder comes and we do Ocha ceremony, I don't even like doing that and then turning around and doing a misa. Like it's a lot. It's a lot. So no, I don't believe that you can effectively do that. And also, why would you? Because it wears on the body. And a lot of what we do as mediums, like we have to really take care of like our bodies.
There's a person in the comments that says it takes an hour and a half just to open and close properly.
All the prayers and songs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What is let's go to this topic before we get, and I'm trying to get all these questions because a lot of these questions people ask me and I never record these, and then and sometimes I keep feel like I'm repeating myself over and over again. So the reason I decided to do all these questions that I have spoken about before is because you're going to be able to find this live on my YouTube if anybody misses it or comes in during the live or anything. This is something that I really want to talk about, and especially you being in Atlanta, because the things that I saw in a drumming, I could only imagine what is going on in Misas. When it comes to what to wear, what do you wear when you go to a Misa? Can you talk a little bit about that? The clothes that men and women should wear, and even children.
Yeah. So, definitely no black, no dark colors. I try to stress that people wear white or light colors as much as possible. A lot of times I get people who come in from work and they're like still in work uniforms and things like that, but I at least tell them, "Hey, have something to cover your head, whatever if you can't change your clothes or whatever." Um I've had people wearing aleques in misas. I've had to tell them to take off their aleques. Yeah, I've had yeah, it gets a. I've had people in like almost damn near costumes coming to me, dressing up like they're spirits, like or what they think they're spirits. Yeah, so I've. Yeah, and it's always a delicate conversation, because it's like I know it's ignorance. I know it's just a lack of knowledge. They don't have anyone to tell them, how to dress and what's appropriate and things like that. And so I try to be delicate, but also educate them, because I'm not super lax, but I'm not super strict either. Like I'm more moderate with my misas. But if they end up going somewhere where it's super super strict, they're gonna get turned away, and I don't want anyone to feel like that I had that experience. I'd rather let them know, like, hey, this is what you wear, this is what you don't wear, this is what you bring, this is what you don't bring.
Especially the Ileke part. And that's the reason why I wanted you to start with that I wanted you to answer that question first, because Atlanta has a thing with Ilekes. I don't know what it is. I think everybody now, this generation, has a wave of everybody wants to wear 20 Ilekes. But in Atlanta, it's big. It's like a thing over there. The more Ilekes you wear, the better, or something. I don't know what it is, to be honest. But when it comes to misas, ladies and gentlemen, you don't wear Ilekes. That's not something that, if you're wearing it, maybe for whatever reason, and you have it on, and it is what it is, but it's not something that is required for you to show up. Okay, and that's something that I wanted to, it's not like, for example, in drummings. There's a lot of people that go with all their lekes and drummings. Why? Because that's what it is. It's there to protect you. When you go to ceremonies, you'll see a lot of priests with their lekes, but when it comes to misas, it's completely different. From what we do in Ocha, from what we do in drummings and stuff like that, that have to do with Aña, Widows, and all that. Um,
Real
something
quick,
that
someone did ask. Oh, sorry. I was gonna say someone asked why we don't wear aleques. I wanted to actually address that real quick. If you don't mind me
yes,
answering that
absolutely,
question.
yes.
We don't wear aleques because in Misas, this is not a space for Risha. Like so we try to have distinction and differentiate the spaces that we create for whatever we're worshiping or whatever we're working with. And so in misas, and this gets into that thing where I've had people come and say, oh yeah, someone told me what my head Orisha was in a misa. Somebody told me that I needed to get crowned in a misa. It's like, no, Orisha's not going to come down in a misa. We're not singing songs for them. We're not playing, the drums for them. It's not for Orisha. So then because of that, we're not wearing alekes because it's not time for Orisha for them. Hopefully that answers that question.
And also, something that I want to teach, and I've spoken to people on my classes about this. When we are in misas, we don't say ache. It's the same thing with palo. I laugh when I see, they're doing a video about palo and people say ache. There's a saying that we say in palo that it literally equals to ache. Ache is an Oricha term, right? A Lukumi term, a Yoruba term, whatever you want to call it, right? So when it comes to misas, if somebody's giving you a message, or if Egun takes over and comes down and gives you a message, the proper way of saying it is, you could say it in English, you could say light, or you could say it in Spanish, which is luz. They both mean the exact same thing. But you don't tell Egun H. And I want to talk about this because there is Eguns, okay, that will get triggered with Ocha stuff, because a lot of them, they could be Congos, a lot of them they could be very close-minded in Palo, and when you come with the Lekes, they'll see that as something disrespectful. I've seen Congos rip the person's ileques off because they don't like it. Okay. Not that the spirit is being disrespectful. It's not that the spirit is being rude. It's that the spirit doesn't understand what one land is different from the other. This is why there's a saying in Spanish and a saying in the Cubans. They say it a lot when the Congos take over us, and we take and they take possession of us. You'll hear the Congos say when they are going to be referring to Ifa or they refer to Ocha, they call it mierda con porquería, which I'm not going to translate to what it is because we might get the thing dropped. But that's literally what a lot of them refer to it because they're making fun of it. They're saying that Ifa ain't it and Ocha ain't it. And what are you going to sit there and argue with a Congo? You really can't because they're stuck in their ways. So this is why a lot of us, we don't wear ileques, especially if for example, I have a specific spirit that's not, when you go in front of him, you got to remove everything Ocha related. I remember we had to do, and I don't know if my goddaughter's here, we had to do something with her in Palo, and she's crowned. And he kept saying, have her cover her head because I don't want to see her crown. Like he was mad because she's already initiated in Ocha. So people need to understand that there is Congos who do get upset, who can get triggered. So to make things easy and to make things, respectful for everybody, it just doesn't go there. And I know somebody else put in the comment that when it comes to Misas, everybody is equal. Proof that in Espiritismo, there is no titles. Okay, there is no rank. Latoya's higher than me and I'm higher. We are all the same. Okay, this is why when people explain Espiritismo is not a religion. It is a practice.
Right.
Because to us, there is no, well, she's been practicing more than me. We just, out of respect, like she said, if her elders are around, she'll, sit in the table and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, everybody's the same. Even the people who are new, even the babies, because sometimes Eku might have to say something and maybe Latoya in that day, she's not feeling okay. And it's going to come, the message could come through her toddler. So it's very important to, when you go to these events, be respectful and everybody is on the same level.
Right.
That's my.
I've been in Misas where the kids will come in and read everybody for filth. Like, some of the best messages I've gotten have been from babies, from the kids, which is why I encourage them in Misas. But yes, everybody's on equal, plane, equal plane. And I think that's important because I've heard of people talk about going to Misas where only the people heading the table were able to give the messages. And I just was like, okay, well, then how are you practicing your mediumship if everyone else is not able to speak, and bring forth their message? So I always thought that was kind of weird. And even the whole idea of people heading the table is just the people that are just kind of facilitating the Misa. It's not because, like you said, they're not higher on the hierarchy. It's only because they just have the experience to be able to facilitate the Misa itself. But, it doesn't mean that, no one else can come in and talk. And I always encourage people who are new, first time coming to a Misa, like, please, whatever comes through, like, don't sit on it. Like, speak, come here and bring your messages forward.
I agree. I'm going to let's answer this question before we talk about the hot topic. Do you allow your godchildren to attend other misas? What's your intake on that?
Well, it depends on the godchild. I don't encourage it. Not by themselves. I'll say that. If you're gonna go to another Misa, go as a group or have me go, we all go together, whatever. I actually like going to other Misas because I get to learn how other people do things. If they're done correctly. I learn how other things are done. So I just kind of encourage my godchildren, like, if you're gonna go to a misa from someone else's house, just let me know, who it is and what they're about, and if I can go with you, I'll go. If not, keep me updated. So I don't have an issue with it, depending on the godchild, if they're responsible enough to, or they're in a place where they can handle themselves if they go to a misa, in someone else's house. Sometimes it's an issue of safety, because if I have a godchild that is a mount, or very sensitive to energies, I don't know if it's a house I don't know. I don't know if they're going to guarantee the spiritual safety of my godchild. So
Los,
that's a factor.
los. They're saying understandable, but I can't see. Hold on.
Oh,
But
if the godchild's in a different state.
that's difficult, but I agree with what she said. If you guys are in a different, if your elders in one state and you're in another, um, you're gonna have to travel. You're gonna have to do a lot of traveling to your elders. That's one, and you are going to in my opinion, try to find people that are responsible. And I know that's difficult now, but I agree with everything that she just said, especially if it's a godchild that that they have a future in mediumship. If you have, if this is a godchild that that at some point in their life they can mount, this is a godchild that at some point in their life they're going to be able to be sitting at that table just like you are. I think, and that's how I do it in my house. I agree with her. I'm not going to stop you. At the end of the day, I don't stop anybody. Everybody's an adult. But I could go with you. That's one. Or two, I don't encourage the person to go with themselves, especially what we are currently living right now, that there are so many people doing so many wild things. And I thought for many years that Espiritismo was safe, but it's not. Now we got a lot of issues in Espiritismo. And that brings me to the question of the night. Okay. Can, in your opinion, misas be conducted online? Because now there is a wave and there's a whole new thing that misas can be conducted online. What I know you did a video, and please, whoever, we have about 110 people on this live. Go and watch her video because it's amazing and she breaks it down. But can you please talk about, as a medium, what is your intake on this wave of online misas?
Well, I guess I missed the wave, because I'm like the person that was talking about it. And when I did my video, I didn't want to make it about attacking that spiritualist. I didn't want to make it about that. I just kind of wanted to address, like, my concerns or whatever about that. And according to them, this is something that's been going on for the last 10 years, and then there was an uptick during the pandemic. All I know was that we stopped hosting misas during the pandemic. Like, we weren't, we cut out a lot of the gatherings during that time. So in my opinion, no, you cannot host misas online for a myriad of reasons. One, oh God, it's like, how do you even, first and foremost, a lot of people don't understand the significance of the table in a misa, right? So when you have, in the misa, you have the table, the setup with the candles and the glass of water, the flowers, whatever. That's set up, and then you have the people heading the table, sitting at it, and then everybody sits in a circle. People don't understand that circle is a current, and that table it's a vault. It's a spiritual vault. So this is where you get into people not understanding the science behind misas and the setup itself. We don't just have candles and glasses of water and flowers for aesthetics. There's a purpose for that. So the spirits that come through, they're coming through that bovada first, that table first, right?
Yes.
How was that translated through a video? You know what I mean? That's my first and foremost. And then because it's a current and everybody's sitting in a circle, the energy is going in like that circular motion. If how is that happening when everybody is displaced in different places
Los.
in an online misa? So there's that issue, right? The other issue is part of a misa is once you're doing opening and you're singing, you cleanse yourself, right? There's a bath that's made. You cleanse yourself. How are you cleansing yourself with an online misa? Like, is everyone just making their own bath? Like, is everybody who's attending sitting in front of their own bovada? Like, okay, so there's that. What happens if someone mounts? I addressed that in the video. Like, so if someone mounts, which is a concern because someone mounting during a video stream is kind of, a concern or kind of weird. But if somebody mounts, how are they getting their spirit being tended to?
Los.
How are you able to identify what that spirit is? If that spirit needs to be sent away, who is there to send that spirit away? So there's that. So there's a lot of issues with, and then spirits don't like to be recorded. You never see anybody really recording a misa. You don't even, like, all the wild things I've seen on TikTok, the one thing I have not seen is an actual recording of an actual misa. I see pictures of before and pictures of after, right? Yes. There's a reason for that. Spirits are not going to be they're not going to get on camera like that, So, so there's just a lot of things, a lot of issues, and a lot of concerns I have when it comes to online misas. With all of that, no, I don't think you can do them successfully online. Why would you also? Like, if I'm an Espiritista and I'm in a community of other Espiritistas, why are we not just gathering in person? Why are you not just if you don't have a community, why are you not contacting someone to travel? I know a lot of you travel. Yep. You know what I'm saying? Like, people travel for misas. So why are you doing them online when if you're legitimate and you're in community, then you could just as easily do them in person.
Agree. What is your opinion? And I spoke a little bit about this yesterday on my live when I was promoting the class that's coming up. What's your opinion on people that say the control ego?
Well,
for example,
control how?
This particular video that was shared to us, and this person claiming that there is such thing as online misas. One of the things that they base these, they base what they're doing is that they say, I lift espiritistas, they can have control over their spirits.
I recall that. Yes.
What's your intake on that? Because this is something that I hear a lot of people saying now. You don't hear
even Eric is laughing. Eric Cologne is in there laughing.
I don't know. I want it because I know my thought, but I don't want it to make it, like it's only me. I want to hear other people's opinion because I said this to my godfather and él me mandó para carajo. He was like, no, don't stop. Stop. Is this from TikTok? That was my padrino's word. Is this from TikTok? And so I couldn't get an answer from him, right? But what's your opinion on people that say that?
Eric Cologne said the only way you can control my muertos with a Twinkie. Not you bribing your muerto with food.
Oh my God.
No, so control, that's such a weird word, that was used. So I don't like that word. No, you can't control muertos. Now you can develop them, you can build a relationship with them, you can train them in the way of having like a working relationship with them. And I'll give an example. Wait, hold on. My baby's in the background making noise. Hey, love, can you grab the baby? He's doing a lot in here. Okay. You trying to be nosy. So I'll give an example. So like my Muerta, she's a Congo and she's a Congo. And you know how Congos are. So my first few years of developing her and getting to know her, I did a lot of work to um kind of refine her a bit. You
Luz,
know.
Luz. Yes.
Because I have a god brother to this day that hates her because when she first came down, she said some things to him that pissed him off so bad. It was just the delivery and the things she said, and it wasn't a
Luz.
lie. My Muerta told not one lie, but it was the way that she said it and the things that she said, and
Because
it
they don't
like
care.
it
They
messed
don't
me.
they
And
don't
so
care.
and so you know, and there's been things like in my elder, and I think he's on my Padrino, I think is on this live watching, but he's talked to me a lot about the ways and things I need to do in order to develop my Muerto, in the sense that like they're not perfect, they're not, you know, they're not infallible is the word, right? And so there are, you know, they've got flaws and things that you know that they have, and that's part of that development, that's part of that elevation. So all that you can do, all that you can work on, but to control them, i've yet to I've yet to control my Muerta. Like she does what she does, you know, she comes when she wants, like she you
I
know,
tell people
once
that
she mounts, yeah.
I think it's a wrong, the wording is wrong. I think the
Yeah.
wording is wrong because you don't control spirit, but you elevate enough, you develop enough that you can have some type of sense and control over yourself. But when spirit has to come down because maybe they see that a person is sick and they have to cleanse them and they have to give a strong message, like you just said, then there's nothing stopping them. Absolutely nothing stopping them. So that's something that's why I think, in my opinion, that online misas is mind blowing because, for example, if we are conducting a misa, I don't even think the energy is there. Like you can definitely, I feel that even in lives, I've seen a lot of people, they do divination through lives and stuff like that. And yes, absolutely, Egun can manifest anywhere. Okay, anywhere, anywhere. Egun can, you know, develop a message anywhere. So I don't think that people that sit on lives doing readings are scammers or this. I don't think so. If Egun has to deliver a message, Egun is going to say the message. It doesn't matter where. But actually making presence, that is what you're saying. The energy is just too strong to be done online. You know, they're not. Listen, in my house, I was taught we don't even have fans on doing misas because there's echoes that will come down and break certain things that are electronic because this is something that didn't exist when they were alive. So this is something that I continue in my house. In my house, when and we do it in the garage. So I tell people, make sure y'all bring your hand fans because I don't turn nothing on. Yeah, no, I don't want them to be broken. You know, they do it sometimes with the phones, you know. I used to let people, when I would do misas, when I go out and do misas, I used to let people record, you know. I didn't have a problem because at the end of the day, I know what I give and I know what my muerto's saying. So I didn't have an issue. A couple of months ago, my muerta said, no more phone. And I was like, okay, I respect this. So now my godchildren know they got it right. Everybody knows they got it right. Not too long ago, I did a misa and the person started recording without telling me. They didn't write nothing down. Now they don't have anything because the whole recording was deleted. And when we finished the misa, her whole face was very like worried. And I was like, are you okay? Is this something maybe I said? She goes, no, it's just I put it to record and it started recording. I saw it started recording it, but it just stopped. And now I don't have anything. And I told her, I was like, you should have told me from the beginning, and I would have told you that my muerto doesn't want recording. And I would have gotten you a notebook, paper, whatever you needed, so you could start. And that's where the part that the whole online thing is, it's questionable to me. And one of the biggest things that we were talking about, and you mentioned in your video, is that if a person has to get cleansed, how do you do this in a online misa? How can this be done? You know, that's the part that, and there is, for example, I have a specific muerta that she was a curandera, you know, and she will clean you. She's not going to wait for you to leave. She's not going to call you back. No, she's going to cleanse the person right there and then. And I have tried, Latoya, many times to not do it because I just don't want to do it. I want to rush. I want to leave. And I get sick the next day because she's telling me, I gave you this blessing, I gave you this gift, and you're going to use it to help other people. So if you are conducting an online misa and Ekun is telling you, you got to cleanse Latoya because I see something's wrong with her stomach, how are you going to do that online?
That part.
Explain that to
that
me.
Part.
That's the thing that I
exactly.
It just doesn't sit well with me. You know,
right. And that's something you bring up a really good point, because a lot of people forget too that when with muertos, they come down to work. A lot of times they come down to not just give the message, but to actually work, you know? And so if they're, how are they going to come down into an empty room with nothing to work? It doesn't translate. And that's what I said in my video. It's like online misas don't translate. And honestly, I think it's lazy. It's lazy. Just get people together and meet in person. Like, what if you could do all that online? What's stopping you from doing it in person?
No, and the fact to justify it by saying that there's people who don't want to be with other people who don't want to see, then you can't go to misas.
That's like, weird.
You know, respectfully, you can't go to misas because let's be honest. Like, for example, I had a misa this last weekend, and it was the son of another person that I did the misa a couple of weeks ago, and he's a complete stranger, don't know him. I had to cleanse him. So if you don't want people to touch you, if you don't want people to cleanse you, then you just can't participate at all, because Ekun is seeing something in you that they want to cleanse. So how can you say and justify, oh, the reason we're doing online is because, you know, some people don't like to be around people? Well, I'm not a people person. I don't like to be around people either, you know? But right. I mean, somebody got to do it, right? Like, it just doesn't, to me, it just doesn't, you know, it just doesn't add up. It just doesn't add up. And I'm not, and
that's weird. Right. You know, no, go ahead. Sorry.
I agree with my husband. He's saying that's a poor excuse because
it is a poor excuse.
I agree. You know, I'm not a friendly person. I don't like to be around a lot of people. I'm always home. You know, it's always me, the kids, my husband, my godchildren. I like to be in my own bubble. But at the end of the day, if you feel that strong, then you cannot go to misas. You know, that cannot be an excuse.
I'm always in the woods or in my garden, you know. I'm always in the woods.
You're out in nature. You stay connected. Like, you stay grounded. You stay grounded.
Right. No, but I feel you. And I think that also is another good point too, because a lot, and I mentioned that in my video as well, a lot of people are missing the point that misas are also about building spiritual community. You know, and you can't be in community, you know, and hold off on, you know, with people trying to connect through a screen. Like, that doesn't.
What is your intake? What is your opinion on this mentality that a lot of people that are new have that they say that things are evolving, that things need to grow, that things need to, because I know you mentioned it when we got on here, you said something that hit home, that you said traditions are not meant to be changed. And that hits home to me because I think, and I'm not going to try to get emotional because you know I cry for everything, but I think that that's what we're losing. We are losing these traditions in our practices, in hoodoo, in santeria, in espiritismo, in palo. We are losing that. You know, what's your
Yeah,
opinion on
no.
people that say that?
No, I agree with you. It's so funny because I'm a traditionalist, but the tradition has to be make sense, right? You know, it has to be applicable, and that's why I'm so like so I can either be all for tradition or completely like throw tradition out the window. Like it's no middle ground for me with that. But I do find in these practices that the tradition is very much like necessary. You know what I mean? Like there's none of these practices without the traditional aspect to them. And people forget, like, you know, they always bring up ATRs and how, you know, in during, you know, slavery, how things had to be changed and done, and because of just the whole history of the transatlantic slave trade and how certain things were lost when priests were brought from, you know, the continent to the diaspora. And they use that as an excuse to be like, well, our ancestors had to add things and change things and, you know, and substitute things because, you know, in order to keep these traditions alive. So we should be able to continue to do that. And they're missing the point that that was only done because of necessity, you
Lose,
know? And but that's not necessary anymore. We're not living in that anymore. You know,
lose.
and so no, I don't believe that. First of all, there's no reason to change anything about Espiritismo. Like it is a fully intact spiritual technology. You know, if it ain't broke, why are we trying to fix it? What is there to
Lose.
fix? You know, that's my take on that. Also, when you change something so much, it becomes unrecognizable to the very spirits that you're trying to call down. And if they don't
Lose.
know what that is that they're looking at, they're gonna leave. They're not gonna, you know, they're not gonna, you know, come. They're not gonna help us. They're not gonna even, you know, come into the space if we're changing so much. And it's funny because you mentioned I forgot to mention that I'm also a hoodoo practitioner, you know. And you know, my tradition of hoodoo is like the low country black belt, you know, tradition of hoodoo. And there's so many things within hoodoo that have been lost that people don't even know about that are done because of this attempt to new age everything, you know. And so, you know, you see it in every one of these practices with that. And it's like people are so quick to try to change and evolve things that they're losing the plot. They're losing the root of the thing that and at that point you're just making up shit. Like at that point you're just making things up.
But it's the same. That's how I feel. That you just mentioned about hoodoo and that statement that you just said, that there's so many things that have been lost that people don't even know it even existed. It's happening in Espiritismo. When I see the things that I see online, it's like, where are you guys getting these things from? Because they didn't exist back in the day. You know, I have always said it that my family, this is what they practice, was espiritismo. This is why, you know, I grew up going to misas. You know, I have uncles that were babalaos. I had aunts, you know, they were crowned and stuff like that. But our foundation was espiritismo, you know. And I would make fun of misas, and I would go as a teenager, and I was like, what the heck is all this? And so I grew up seeing things that you don't see now, you know. And that's the part that people are not understanding, that they keep with this mindset of let's change it. And Omar made a very good, valid point, is that they're doing it so it could be easier for the newcomers. They're making it easier for people to understand. This is something that I spoke about one time in my life. And you're seeing a lot of practitioners who are African American or who are Black American, whatever they choose, because some people don't like to call themselves African Americans, but Black Americans. You literally said it in the beginning. These are traditions that have already the 1, 2, 3. Okay, yes, you could incorporate certain things, but you cannot change it. I have heard people of saying, well, my madrina's Black and we don't do these prayers. We do these prayers and we sit and we're singing gospel music. Yes, you could incorporate in it. I don't see nothing wrong with it. I don't see nothing wrong with mixing and but at the end of the day, you cannot change something that was already done.
Right.
And it doesn't matter if you're Black, Asian, it doesn't matter. And that's the problem that we're having, is that people want to make it comfortable for themselves. And what you're saying now is like this whole wave. I personally have never ever heard of online misas to now, and
Right.
like I said yesterday, it started during COVID. And even though there was a lot of Cubans, because the Santeria didn't stop in Cuba, in Miami. I worked like 3 Santos during COVID. That's not going to stop.
Crown during COVID.
Exactly. That's not that didn't stop. That didn't stop us from doing it. But
Right.
a lot of people found an opportunity to say, I can't lose my money. Let's make this up. Let's do this. I remember a couple years ago when COVID hit, there's a big espiritista. I don't know if she's on TikTok. I know she's big on Facebook. I don't know if she's like on Instagram, but she's big on Facebook and she's big on YouTube. She's a Cuban lady that lives in Spain. And she started claiming that she was doing online misas through WhatsApp. The entire community attacked her. She had to go ghost because it just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
Like, you can't. It just doesn't. It doesn't, she says she's on TikTok. I seen her. Okay. There's things that we have to, you made valid points on everything you said. There's a lot of things that go into a misa that can be done online. And the main thing for me, like I said yesterday on my live, if we keep having this mindset of things have to change, things have to change, things have to change, eventually we're going to be crowning through WhatsApp. Eventually we're going to be receiving our Hana Bifa through the mail. Eventually we're going to be getting warriors through the post office. Like it's going to get like that. And people are going to justify it and say, well, we can't get stuck. We can't stay behind. We gotta, the Babalaos in Miami and I live in Connecticut. We got to do something. And it's literally the same. That's why I said it yesterday. If we can conduct an online misa.
Not WhatsApp samples. I'm reading the comments. They're like, not WhatsApp samples.
If we can conduct an online misa, what makes us think that a babalao cannot conduct a ceremony of Ifa through WhatsApp?
That part. It's a slippery slope. It definitely is. It gives people this idea that it's legitimate, and it's not. It's not. I'm just gonna straight up say it. It's not legitimate. And you make a good point when you said earlier about how we can take things and we can add things to the protocols based off the situations. Like I said, for example, most of the people who attend our misas are African American, and the spirits that they bring with them are black spirits, So yes, I'm gonna still open with all the prayers. I'm still gonna sing, someone mentioned Sea Santissimo, but I'm also gonna sing Wade in the Water. As a matter of fact, my elder, his Muerta Love, we brought her down singing Wade in the Water,
Wow,
and it was
beautiful.
So funny. She's like, I don't know what it means, but she felt the energy, you know what I mean? And so it's like, so we can incorporate that, I found spirits, that like some of the spirits in Atlanta here have been wanting to some chain gang songs, and some gospels and things like that. So yes, we're incorporating those into the Misas, but I'm not substituting. I'm just, I'm adjusting based off of who is present and what spirits they're bringing, but I'm not completely changing the whole protocol. We're still opening the same, closing the same. We're still cleansing. The table is still set up the same. We're seated the same. You know what I'm saying? If muertos mount, that protocol is still the same. Like, we're not doing anything different, So yeah, I agree. Like, it doesn't translate. It sets a dangerous precedent. I don't want anyone to think that online misas are valid, because they're not. They're really not. And at the end of the day, my question is, why are we not meeting in person? Like that.
That's the part that throws me off. I agree. That's definitely
why are we not
part.
meeting in person? And if you don't like people, then hire an espiritista to come and bring, and have her come do a misa in your home with you and your family. If you don't like being with strangers, like, like it was said earlier, like it's a bad excuse. It's just an excuse.
Agree. I'm trying to make sure that we covered some of the questions. Let me see.
Yeah, I'm going up. I'm seeing
the type of misas. A lot of people always ask me this, because a lot of people, the main misa that everybody kind of already knows and is aware of is misa de investigación. And I want to do a post about this because there's several types of misas, and not all espiritistas can conduct every misa, because that's another thing that people need to understand. They are mediums who don't necessarily mount, and they're mediums who mount. There's mediums who only taste, only hear, and then we have mediums who could do all of it, so that's important for people to understand, because a lot of people always think that, well, if Latoya didn't mount, she's bullshit. Well, if Senia didn't mount, she's bullshit. And in reality, once you have your spirit, and I spoke about this yesterday, once you have your spirit developed enough, there's things that change in your body. And even though you're still there, you're not completely taking possession. They're changing. The way you move your hands, your eyes, the way you speak, your demeanor, your energy changes. And you're there. You're there. There's no mounting or anything like that. But your energy changes. People start, that happens a lot to me with my goddaughters. They feel it very, very fast when my spirit is very close to me. My husband, when he sees me, he knows certain things that I do, that he knows that she's there making presence. And I want people to listen and understand that, because a lot of people think that if the person doesn't mount, then it's bullshit. And what is your intake and your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I don't understand this obsession with mounting, and I've said it before, that it's hard being a mount. It's hard on the body. It's hard on your psyche. It takes a lot to be a mount, physically, mentally, emotionally. And then you have to have the right type of relationship with your muerto, because what if they mount and they're not elevated? And then, so
And yes,
there's that, because once they come, they're doing whatever they want to do. And if you haven't done the work to elevate that spirit, and now they're mounting you, that could potentially be an issue. Someone said my god sister said the obsession is too real in Atlanta. Yeah, people have this obsession with mounting. And then it leads to this thing of people fake mounting, because again, then it's that idea that if you don't mount, you're not real. And it's like, honestly, the best mediums I've seen are the ones that don't mount, because if you have the ability to be able to like have your spirit on you, and they're talking, and then you can commune without having them to take possession, a lot of times that's a clearer like message, a clearer work with that, so no, you don't. And then there's people who, for health reasons, their muertos won't mount them out of respect for that person's body. Maybe the body can't take it. Some people, they may ask to have that relationship with their muerto where they're like, they agree like, hey, I'll elevate you. We'll go to misas and things, but please don't mount me, So, and at the end of the day, the spirit's still going to do what it wants to do. But if you have that relationship, the spirit will,
They'll listen. They'll
they'll
listen.
listen. When I was pregnant during my year, when I was in Yawo, and I would go to misas with my elders specifically on occasion, but during those times, my Martha was not mounting me. One, because she, out of respect for me being crowned, she was
Yes.
not touching my head. But also, I was pregnant. She wasn't gonna put that on my body with me being pregnant. So yeah, it's an obsession. I don't understand it. I kind of feel like it's for theatrics. And that's something else too. I've had a long period of about 4 or 5 months where my muerta was not mounting me during misas because she recognized that people were coming to misas just to see me mount. And so there was a period where she was purposely, because I could feel her on me and I could feel her touching me, but she wasn't, and I was okay with that. But yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot to be a mount. And then if you are one, and that's something you want to cultivate, then you got to really do the work to make sure that that's being done in a way that you're safe and that it's responsible and that it's not wearing on your body.
I think the obsession comes because I saw the question. The obsession comes from people who aren't mounters. That's where it comes from. And the reason I'm telling you this is because as a person that mounts as a caballo, that mounts both Egun and Oricha, and I've spoken to my husband about this a lot when we have conversations. If there is something that I could change from being in this traditions is mounting. And if you truly understand, sorry, how draining and how tiring and how much pain a person can go through, you wouldn't want to mount. You don't see people who are true mounters trying to mount every 5 minutes. They're the first ones that run out. They're the very, very first ones that run out. The very first ones. I remember that when I started getting developed, I would mount Egu anywhere. If they were doing the yangareo, they were doing the Egu. It was crazy. There was my muertos didn't have no type of control, at all. And when you're not developed, to some people like myself, I used to do, I would mount two spirits back to back. And it was so like, I felt that they beat my ass. Like it was really, really, really bad. And I kept
Yeah.
saying, oh my God, if this is what I got to deal with, until, yeah, my madrina was like, we got to start developing her. And they started doing misas back to back, back to back, back to back. And it was very difficult. It was very, very draining to me because I have a specific spirit that wouldn't let the other one come without him coming. So she would come and like brah, and it was that whole, and I remember all the time when they would do that, I had to get hair rogations after because it was so bad. So in my opinion, as somebody that mounts both Oricha and Egun, the obsession comes from people who don't mount, who have never experienced that and want to feel that energy and want to like it's that thing. And my husband could tell you, my godchildren can tell you, I know when I'm gonna mount, Oricha. Once you understand Anya and the power of Anya, you know which drumming it triggers your ear. It triggers your so I'm the first one running. I'm the very, very first one running. I my husband could tell you I leave all the time. I don't want to be part of it. and I've controlled myself more, and and I've learned more as years go by, because Obatala told me, you are gonna need to to make presence. You're gonna need to expand yourself. You're gonna need to grow spiritually and stuff like that. So throughout the years, it's gotten a lot better. But when I first started, I was like, what the heck is this? It was very, very crazy. I mounted one of the very first times that I mounted, I was pregnant with my son, and I was huge. And it was crazy because it was that feeling of what's going on, and because that's why, to me, when I hear people say I control ego, you could develop ego, you could develop your spell spiritually, but it's not. And I have a specific spirit that does mount me just to cleanse me, because they don't trust anybody else. And that's what people need to understand. A lot of us get mounted with the Oricha, with Egum, because of that, because they want to cleanse ourselves. They want us to get, that's why we'll wake up and it's like completely different. It's very difficult for those of us who like mount during our sleep. It's a sensation that, it feels like you're dying, kind of. It's like that's the vibe that I get. It's like you're in between, like, what's going on. But why they do it to cleanse us, and they're not gonna care, because at the end of the day they see what we don't see. They probably say, well, hold on, nobody's there to cleanse Latoya. Let me go in and cleanse her, because there's no one else who's gonna save her more than me. So I think the obsession comes from that. The obsession comes from not really understanding what it does to the body. I think that's what it is. That everybody wants that. I want to see, and I want to. It's like I was talking about that yesterday. Like when people go to drummings, they're chasing the oricha. Like, why are you chasing the oricha? If the Oricha has to tell you something, they're going to find you. It doesn't matter if you're sitting in the bathroom, if you're outside, they're going to come after you. And I
It's
think
so funny. Me and my god sibling, we're talking about that recently, about how because I've had like some people, come to drummings and they're like, Risha didn't say anything. Am I good? I'm like, no news is good news. Like,
thank you. Yes.
don't, but no, it's so funny. And that was me at our last tambor that we had for Batala last month. And it is just it. And Yemaya, when she first few times she came on me, I was out of commission for like a week. Because she's rough. She's a rough. Now it's getting better, it's getting smoother, and but no, it is that thing where we were at the drumming and we had a Yemaya come down, because in Atlanta, in our Ile, we have a ton of Yemayas. It's like all water. So when one of my god siblings, when she came, I was like, okay, we're good. We don't need, Yemaya's here. I can enjoy the drumming, because anytime I felt that, I was like, okay, let me go out of the range, let me go in the other room, let me go outside. But she still ended up coming anyway later on, down on me. But no, it is rough. And even with my Muerta, when she mounted me the first time, I just remember, I came back and I was wet, because she does this thing where when she comes, she pours water over herself. That's how she's there, So I'm sitting there wet and everybody's staring at me, and I don't know what happened, because there's no recollection of what happens, So yeah, it can be disorienting. It's hard on the body. It can be embarrassing sometimes, because it's like this thing happened and you don't know, and now people are talking to you, and yeah, your Muerto said this, and Yemaya said this, and I'm just like, okay,
It is. You don't know how many times I tell my goddaughters, write it down, because I'm not gonna remember.
I'm not gonna remember.
Because I'm not gonna remember.
I'm not gonna
Write
remember.
it down. And I tell them all the time, write it down, write it down, write it down, write it down, because you have to. You have to write it down.
You have to. And it's so funny, even the back-to-back mounting, I had that happen one time. It was years ago, and I think it was before I crowned, and it was a Misa in New Orleans, and I should have knew better. Like, I should have knew better than to do a Misa.
Listen, I don't care if they pay me $500,000. I am not going to New Orleans to do no Misa.
I will
You
never,
crazy.
I will never, I will never do another Misa in New Orleans like that. And it was
I
back to
can
back,
only
and
imagine the energy.
all I know
Wow.
is that we didn't get done out of I didn't come back. Like it was such a back to back thing that they didn't stop mounting me till we got done at that Misa at 3 a.m. I've never been in a Misa that late. Like you know, and we were and anybody who I know we have a lot of people in this live, anybody who's familiar with New Orleans, we were in the Algiers area. I think Algiers, I think that's how you say it. But the part of New Orleans that's not in the actual like city area, but like closer to where the water is. Where the so we were right, you know, this beautiful neighborhood right by the river and doing this Misa. And it was like I know my Murtha came, that's what they said, you know, I recognized that. But all these the other mortals that came, I can't tell you who came on me. Like
Listen, and we're not talking because there's people in the comments. We're not talking about it being something negative. We're talking about for those who know, if there is a city that they compare to Cuba, it's New Orleans because that's what they say. They say that New Orleans is the Cuba of the country. It's so much spirituality in that city that I could only imagine doing a misa there. That would be beautiful, but I would like to see it. Maybe we could do an online misa there. I'm down with that. I'll
you
definitely
the only way
because
that I would ever do
wow.
another Misa in New Orleans is if I was new. I was still not developed. It would have to be with other the trained mediums. Like there's no way like that was. And the thing
Yes.
too with New Orleans is that it's got one of the highest concentrations of Congo spirits, you know,
Yes.
so there's that too, you know. But yeah, yeah, I got to be with people who know what they're doing. And I mean that was years ago. That was like maybe about 6 years ago. I've grown a lot since then.
Yeah, no.
But yeah,
I
it was
went to
wild.
New Orleans, Latoya, fresh out of my yauraje. Okay. Like my hair was still like this. And that was the worst thing. And I don't know if my sister's on this live, but she probably jinxed me because our plan was to go together. And I didn't go with her. I went with another set of our friends. And it was intense. Like intense. Like I was like, you feel the energy just being in a bar. Like, and the beautiful thing about New Orleans is they literally have altars everywhere in a bar,
Everywhere.
in the bathroom. Like they're so spiritual. It's amazing. You know, that would be a beautiful thing to do a misa there. But yeah, no, I would have to go with my husband, like 3 or 5 of my
Right.
children. No, yeah, no. Listen, I'm very blessed to be with who I am because I go with people, especially like, and that's something that you mentioned earlier. When you are a mounter, it is very, very important. And this is, I know we're joking and we're playing, but this is very true. When you are a mounter, do not go alone. Okay. Do not go alone. You guys need to understand that spirituality, espiritismo, is a beautiful practice. It's a beautiful practice. But espiritismo has its dark side. Okay. And they are espiritistas that we can take spirits. Okay. And if I'm conducting a misa and Latoya's there and I'm seeing that Latoya's people is on point and I could put them to work and they're good and X, Y, and Z, they are espiritistas that will take them. Okay. And that is, I'm not going to go into details because that's not my place to go into details, but it is important, you know, for you to make sure if you are a mounter or if you are someone that are developing, do not go by yourself. Okay, do not go by yourself, because it's a thing. And it's a thing that I don't want people to be scared, because 90% of this new generation doesn't know what they're doing. And I'm not trying to sound as if, the old people know better, but the old people know better. These are tricks, like we call mañas, old. Okay, these are things that, it's not that we can all show up and do a Padre Nuestro and I take your spirit. It's deeper than that. But there's people that exist that do it.
Yeah.
Okay, so you
Yeah.
have to be very careful. Very, very
Yeah,
careful.
and I love that even the art of trapping spirits and taking them places, and like that's lost. You don't hear too many people talking about that. And like I said, even in hoodoo, there's so many things. Like I remember being in a group, like a hoodoo group, and someone asked, they were like, I know in voodoo and in other ATRs they talk about zombies, specifically in Haitian voodoo, the use of zombies and things like that. And they're like, why don't we have anything like that in hoodoo? And I'm like, actually, we do. So you'll have some old school hoodoos that they talk about and know about, they don't call them zombies, but the use, of enslaving spirits and getting them to do certain things and for malicious intent, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
And everybody was shocked. Everybody was like, and I'm like, yeah, because y'all too busy putting glitter on candles. Like y'all don't know, y'all don't know about a lot of this old school stuff, or stories of people, getting work thrown on them and it literally kills them from the inside out, eats them from the inside out. People getting stuff work thrown on them and then they get worms and, just different, like there's so much stuff that people don't know about in terms of voodoo and even in, within, Spiritismo and et cetera. And that's why I go back to the whole point of why we don't need to evolutionize these practices. Why would you evolve them when you don't even know half of like you don't even know what you're evolving them from because you haven't learned enough about them. And even me, I'm still learning. That's why I like speaking with other practitioners like such as yourself, because I'm always learning stuff. I don't know everything.
I mean, I have this in my diet, and I always talk about it. I don't know everything either. I love learning from other people. I love these traditions. That's why I'm very passionate. That's why I get very, very triggered when I see the nonsense. And me and you, we speak privately a lot. And there's certain things that I don't even want to address because I'm going to be very rude when I address it, because these are traditions that I have been practicing for many years. And with one cup of water and a candle, I've seen people save lives. So for people to sit here and want to Hollywood these traditions, whether it's hoodoo or espiritismo, it really triggers me. It really, really does trigger me. It makes me want to, so that's why I try my best to do lives like this and just spread awareness on what really we should be focusing on. Before we wrap it up, what is an advice that you can give to someone that is starting, to someone that is aware that they have some type of mediumship, some type of gift? They don't know where they're at. They're lost. They don't have elders. What is an advice that you could give them?
So, I would say, especially if there's no elder that they have access to or no community, because I do have quite a few people who've reached out to me and they're in remote areas that don't have like a large ATR community or any type of ATR community. There are some books that you can get started with. And I think I'm going to do a separate video where I just kind of, this is one book. I have it. San Santissimo. This is a good one that I've, used, just to,
Where did you get
like
that
get
one,
started with it.
Latoya? Where did you
Huh?
find it? Where did you find
I
it?
think San Santísimo. I think I order this on Amazon. I've had this for a while. I think I ordered it on Amazon, and I think this book is hard to find
Yeah,
because
I saw somebody else the other day. I saw this lady. She's been here. She was in Spain and she just got to Miami, and I saw her showing that it was a Cuban lady. She was doing a like divination and stuff like that, and she was showing it. But I didn't want to go on her live and ask her. I want to grab that
yeah,
book.
yeah, it's called
It's on
San
Amazon.
Francisco
Inner just said it. Inner, is it on
on
Amazon?
Amazon. Yeah, I think I got it on Amazon. I haven't been able to find it anywhere else but Amazon. Like I
Because I
haven't seen it
haven't seen
anywhere
that at the
else.
warehouse. The warehouse that we
No,
go
no,
to.
no. And it's a really good book. You know, it tells you, it talks about like the history of spiritism, and not just from the Alan Kardec perspective, because you know there's been conversations about that too, which is a whole other live. And that's something else I want to get into because people act like, people act like this is the only book. This is the book that you learn Espiritismo from. You don't learn Espiritismo from this book. You don't.
Loose.
The prayers, the prayers and the outline and things like that is there, but not the actual practice of Espiritismo. You can't learn that in any of the Allan Kardec books. So, I would say start with that. And then I know this Book of Selected Prayers,
I've
is
seen
another
that one.
one.
I've seen that one.
And then this one's kind of more of like the
I like that
simplified
one.
version of
All my godchildren who don't
yeah.
speak Spanish, they have that book.
Yeah, so this one's good because it's basically the
The
updated,
rest.
like easier version of that book. And you can start with that. Now, I know for me, so I kind of had that issue because when I first got into spiritism, I was attending Misas and I was told that I was a medium and that I needed to have a boveda. But at the time, I wasn't super active in an elay yet. So and there was just some things, politics and things going on with the people's house that I was going to. I wasn't part of their house. I wasn't seeking to join their house. I was just going to their misas. So I was told I needed to set up a boveda, but then nobody would show me how to set up a boveda. And I've talked to you about this. And so they were supposed to show me, they wouldn't show me, whatever, I guess because I wasn't a part of their house. That's just how they chose to do things. But eventually I had a dream where Mamerto showed me what they wanted, which they wanted me to start off with just 3 glasses of water. So 2 smaller glasses and then 1 larger glass. And that's all they wanted. They didn't want, a candle or whatever. So I was able to go off that and then build from that. And then eventually when I joined the Elay I'm in now, I was able to get further training from my elder.
We'll show the books now in a minute,
And he
y'all. Give me a
refined.
second. We'll show the books
Yeah, I'll
again.
show the books again. Yeah, before we. Yeah. So I said that to say there are a few books that you can reference if you're just starting out, you don't have anyone to go to, you don't have an elder. Please don't go off TikTok. Please don't listen, unless, I know we're on TikTok saying this, but I've seen more. And even with that, because I know Xenia has made posts before where she stated that there's certain things that she even has on her boveda that are specific to her, that are for her and her boveda and her spirits, So if you're on TikTok and you see someone's boveda and you see that they've got certain things, don't just automatically go get those things and add them to yours thinking that that's what you're supposed to do, because everybody's boveda is very specific. What Xenia has on hers is very different than what I have on mine.
Exactly.
So I say, I'll post the books, whatever, start with those. Start with learning prayers. Start with learning, there's songs for Misas that you can learn. There's a book of Misa songs that I'll post that as well. But yeah, just start with that. Start with the book, set up a boveda, very simple. If you don't know like the number of glasses, because that's always I know you get questions about that a lot too. Like, well, how many glasses should I add? Should it be, 9 or whatever? Start with one glass of water, one glass of water and one candle, and you sitting there with some prayers. And that's really kind of all you need. And then from there, when you build that consistency, I sit at mine every morning. I meditate and sit with mine. I give mine coffee. I blow cigar smoke. Like, I pray. I have a certain prayer that my muertos like. And I do that every morning. I tend to them. I tend to my Orishas, and then I tend to my other spirits. Once you build that consistency, then you'll start to like get that development will be pretty quick. It's the consistency that makes the development happen faster. So with that, you would have a solitary practice, until you're able to get with people and have a community that you can meet with in person, or an elder or someone that can train you a little bit more. But it doesn't have to be complicated. It can be really simple starting out.
And I feel, to piggyback on what you mentioned about TikTok, I don't want people to take her words, because we know we got a lot of muertos oscuros in here. And I know there is 120 plus people on here, and we probably have about 100 other outside. So shout out to y'all. I want you guys to understand what she said. If you're going to learn from somebody, because there is a lot of good people on this app, okay, you guys need to stick to one person. I see a lot of people, and that is the problem that a lot of people have. And I explain it on my lives. I talk about it in my classes. You guys will go to Latoya, she'll teach something, then you'll jump to Jennifer. Look, Jennifer is going to teach something, and then you jump to Juan, and then you jump to Xavier, and then you jump to Omar, and then you jump to Eric, and then you jump to Senia. And you need to understand that, yes, Espiritismo Cruzado has its 1, 2, 3s, the basic. But there's going to be little tricks that Latoya was taught by her elders. And on top of that, there's going to be tricks that she is starting to add to her practice. So maybe she teaches her godchildren to put a lighter in front of the Santísimo every morning before praying. That is something that she teaches. So now you come to me, and then I tell you, oh no, you don't need the lighter. So that's where the confusion comes in. And this is why it's important that you guys stick to someone, because the jumping around is going to get you messed up. Because there is a lot of people on here with a lot of knowledge, but there's a lot of people on here with no knowledge. And I say this very respectfully. There's a lot of really good salesmen on this app that they're really good with talking, and they have a lot of followers, and people jump into that, and then for someone who doesn't know, for someone who's beginning, they see it and they're like, oh, wait a minute, Senia's on point, or Fulana's on point. You got to stick to one person. And if you have any lay, if you have an elder, they are the ones you have to go first. And if maybe you watch a video, you know how many people I message me and they say, I shared my video with my elder. I share your video with my elder. Thank you for teaching this. And that's something you could also do. We do it all the time privately and stuff like that. I could share it to Latoya. Hey, what's your thought about this? Oh, this and this and that. I do it with a lot of my other friends. I do it on Voodoo, on Hoodoo. I do it on Santeria, on Palo. We share. But it's important that jumping around, that you guys stop, because that's going to affect you. And what people are not understanding is that instead of you getting developed, all you're doing is pushing back. All you're doing is pushing back, because you keep jumping around. Spirit is seeing it. Spirit is like, wait a minute, this person no, they're not ready yet. So be very mindful with that. In my opinion, that's something that, I think the jumping around it's a big, 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 big thing. Latoya, can you share the books one more time so everybody could see them? I
Yes,
know
yes.
that people were
And
asking.
also too, I want to I want to expand on a point you made about the beauty of sharing things with your elders, right? There have been a lot of times where me being new in my ignorance, I see something and I'm like, and in my head, I'm like, well, my Elay doesn't do that. My elder never taught me that. Oh, this is bullshit. And then I send it to my elder and he's like, well, actually, this is
Los,
legitimate. This is why. This is what they used to do. Like, and so it's a
los,
teaching moment, you know? So that's why it's good to have those elders that you can give information to or send things to and they can school you. So then that way I'm not jumping on TikTok talking about, oh, this isn't done. But it actually is, you know?
los,
So, oh, we got Omar.
los. Loose, loose,
so,
loose. I agree 1,000% on that
okay.
because my godchildren do it to me. My godchildren send me stuff and I'm like, no, that's correct. It's just they do it this way, like that.
Yeah.
So agreed. Can you share the books before we jump off real quick so they could
Yes.
see it? I'm
This
gonna
is
look into that book.
Sea Santissimo by Mario dos Ventos. I don't know if you can see
Is that
it.
in English, Latoya?
It is in English. I think they do have a Spanish version though. I think I've seen a Spanish version, but it is in English.
Oh damn, I don't like reading in English. I'm
No,
gonna
I
look it
think
up
they
in
have a
Spanish.
Spanish version.
Okay.
Yeah. And then of course, you know, the collection of prayers that we all know about. And this one's a little hard read because it's translated from French. And
I
so
can't stand that book.
yeah. So this one is the better book because it's got all of
Agreed.
the collection of selected prayers. It literally has the same exact prayers as this one, but the translation is better. So this one is a good one. And then this one is helping yourself with selected prayers. And I think this one you can find in the warehouse. They've got this.
Yeah,
I
I've
know
seen
that.
that. I've seen that one in the warehouse. I've seen that one.
Yeah, and then they've got a volume two. So they've got a volume. This is the first volume, and they got the second volume. I think is blue, a blue cover. But I actually like
Oh, I
this.
seen the blue one too. I didn't
Yeah.
know.
So these are I use this one more than the blue one though. I like there's more prayers in here for the spirits that I deal with. In here you'll find more of the Catholic saints and things when you're doing the novenas and whatnot. So those are the books that I recommend.
Awesome, awesome. Babe, what do you want to say before we jump off?
Um, first of all, I want to say good evening to everybody. I see a lot of people saying hello, and I didn't want to cut um our guests off. So good evening to everybody. Bendiciones. But yes, I wanted to jump to piggyback on the topic of what we tend to see a lot, and that's people jumping, and we've been talking about this for a while. People jumping from one um from one page to another to another to another. By all means, everybody has the right to go and listen to whoever they want to listen to, right? But here's what happens: there is a lot of information on here, right? There's a lot of information on here, and there's a lot of people doing a lot of talking, and not all of the talking or not all of the information is correct, or it might be 50% correct, or it might be 70% correct. And to the non-trained ear, you're not going to know what is what. And so that's where it gets confusing. That's why you have to decide, because here's the thing. Again, if you don't, at some point you're going to have to decide to follow somebody seriously, maybe join their ile, join their house, but it can't be just I'm going to learn from everybody on TikTok and that's it. eventually you have to belong to a house. You have to belong, because you're only going to get so far on this app. There's a lot of stuff that Eric, I'm sure Eric alone can tell you. Um, these two ladies here can tell you. Anybody that is crowned can tell you. We are only giving you like this much of information. We are only giving you that. This is the reason why I stopped coming on this app so much, because there's only so much I can talk about, because everything else is secret. Everything else is maybe something that I do in particular that somebody else doesn't do. And it's very, I can't give so much, right? And the other people that are on here talking, they can't give so much either. So, how long can we sit here talking about the basics? You know, we've gone over Ilekes, we've gone over, what can you give to the warriors? What can you give to Elegua? What can you give to Ogun or Chosi? And it's so many people talking that I'm like, I'm not gonna continue repeating the same thing because everybody else is talking about it, right? So eventually, everybody has to choose somebody to go to, because again, I see it. 1 minute everybody's with me, great. Everybody's commenting, ache, ache, ache. Then all of a sudden, it's whoever the next, the next person that is hot, right, for the season is now everybody's over there. Ache, 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 ache. And then boom, they leave that person, and now everybody's somewhere else. Ache, ache, ache. And it's, you know, and so you eventually have to end up somewhere, or else you're just going to be a collector of information, and you're not really going to belong to a house, and you're not going to learn, um or you might fall into the situation where you've listened to one particular person for so long, and then you finally decide to join a house that's a totally different house, and they don't do anything like what the person that you've been listening to
Los.
taught you, right? So you have to eventually choose, pick wisely, but you're going to have to eventually choose, a home, an actual home, because again, we're giving you 10%, if that, of information. This is very basic what we can speak on, and half of the stuff that's basic, a lot of people are getting that wrong, right? So just be careful.
I agree. I agree. And Eric mentioned something on the comments that I agree 1,000% with. And it has gained a lot of enemies on my end. And it is the issue that we have on this platform with aleyos trying to teach. You guys have to go to people who are actually priests, who actually been, are hands on. Okay, this is huge on here. We have aleyos teaching everything. That's a thing that we never saw back in the day. But this platform, somebody can have 50,000 followers and you guys listen to them and oh my God, they're huge in hoodoo. But then here comes Latoya, who probably has two people following. Oh, nah, she don't know what she's talking about, because you guys base a person's knowledge on their followers. And that is a huge issue that this platform has, that you have to be very, very mindful on that. Is that there's certain things that aleyos can only really teach, and they're only learning it from things that they're hearing, because at the end of the day, there's certain things that they cannot see, they haven't seen yet, things that me, Latoya, and Omar have seen. So be very, very, very mindful with that. um Latoya, I know you have a shop. What is another way that if anybody that is on this live wants to reach out to you that are in the Atlanta area, how can they reach out to you? Do you have a website? Do you offer any services? What do you know? I know you have a shop and stuff like that, but what are ways that people could reach out to you if they have any questions for you?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I do have a shop, a Botanica in Forest Park, which is in Southwest, not too far from the airport in Atlanta. I'm very active in my community. So even though like I be out in the woods and I'm like low key antisocial, like I'm very, very active in my
You're very
community.
hands-on.
So you could definitely pull up the shop. The store is called Simbi's Conjure Shop. It is metaphysical store, but it is hoodoo based. So a lot of the stuff I sell in there is geared towards hoodoo practitioners. So you can look me up there and pull up. I do have a website, and if you go to my bio, if you go to my page in the bio, there's a link to my actual website, but it's called Be the Vibe, the letter B and THEVIBE. So that's my website, and you can find everything out about me on there, including my classes. I do teach classes. I have some online classes, but my spirits have been on me to do in-person classes, so I'm getting back to doing more in-person classes. So right now I've been focusing on teaching foundational stuff for spiritual work, like spiritual practice. So a lot of my classes have been revolving around ancestor veneration, how to make spiritual baths. I've been big on teaching people spiritual hygiene. I do a foraging class, so I have one coming up where I take people out to the nature preserve and I teach them how to look for herbs out in nature, how to collect them, how to leave offerings out of and nature and things like that. So I do have that coming up. I do readings. My spirits won't let me stop doing readings. I be trying not to. I be trying to get away from it, but they're like they won't let me stop doing readings. So I do readings. Not Dilagoon. I if anyone needs a Dilagoon reading, I can send them to my elder. But I do like bone readings and like tarot and things like that. So I do those types of readings. I hold misas. So like I said, like I do a lot. I do a lot.
Question, you're open because I know you do open misas. Is it just for your godchildren, or can somebody who is trying to get information, trying to join, trying to see hands-on what a misa is, can they come, or how does that work?
No, they can absolutely come. So in my misas, my monthly misas are open. I don't charge. I just ask that people RSVP so I can just get a head count because I do cap it at about 20 people.
Okay.
And so if you go to my website, if you go to the events tab on my website, you can see the misas coming up, and you can there's a form you fill out just to RSVP. So this month's Misa is already filled up, but next for July is open. And I do Misas from February to October. So I close down during the winter. So we just have July, August, September, and October coming up. And then after that, I won't be hosting Misas again until next year. But they're absolutely open. I do encourage people to come and attend if they're in the area or if they're willing to travel.
Okay. Okay, that's awesome. I know I want to wrap it up because I want to make sure that whoever wants to watch this, you guys could go on my YouTube. I'm gonna download it tonight and post it on my YouTube. I don't know, Latoya, if your elders are on this live. I know you have a lot of people who are your god sisters, brothers that are joining. You know, I say this privately, but I'm gonna say it publicly. You represent your elders very, very well. Um, you know, I love you to death. You know, we clown and we joke and all that, but I'm very, very grateful what you're doing, especially in Atlanta, because Atlanta needs it. You know, it's a very spiritual city. It's a very spiritual land, and it's sad that it has such a bad name. So I know they're very proud of you. I don't think I have to say that for them, but I want to tell you that me as a Iyalocha, you make the Lukumi community very proud. And Espiritismo, and I'm happy that you're teaching because there's so many people that need that. So thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you for joining me.
Thank
Thank
you. I
you
appreciate that.
for
Thank you so much.
sharing.
I really appreciate it. I'm so grateful. Thank you to both
You're
of you.
welcome.
And Omar, I do miss you getting on and doing your videos. I do miss you.
Yeah, we
But
miss
Yeah,
I
you.
understand. I definitely
I've
understand.
been I've been on the DL.
I know. DJing. You've been in your
Yeah,
happy
you
place.
know, I've
Yeah.
been in my happy place.
Yeah, no, he gets rough all around. Yaloda's children, they get a little, they get, so he's going through his Ochun phase, that
Right.
he's like, I'm over everything. So, but no, I want to thank everybody. Thank you, thank you, thank you for all the sharing, all the likes. It has been 100 people since we got on, so you guys know that I appreciate it. I'm very, very glad that I have the platform where I could bring people in that are teaching and spreading the word, and they're doing things correctly. So to me, I want to say thank you not only to her, but to my husband who's on here and to everybody who's supporting. Make sure you guys follow her. Listen to the last video that she did, is very, very good on this topic about Misas and online and stuff like that. I'm going to wrap it up. I'm going to see what
And that
next
way, real
week.
quick too, because I know a few more people were asking about the books. So I'm gonna just do a separate video on my page where I show
Awesome.
the book.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yes. So make sure you go and follow her. Keep harassing her so she could do more videos, y'all. Please take her out the woods. Maybe she could come out. But please, please, she has a lot of knowledge, not just in Lukumi and Espiritismo, but also in Hoodoo. She's old school. She wants to keep these practices closed
Yeah.
because that's what they are. Okay, that's what they are, whether it bothers some people or not, but they are. But again, thank you, everybody.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. I got mad love for you, but thank you guys.
Yes.
I'll see you soon. Everybody, and I'm gonna see what I come up with next week. See who I could bring up here, and we could talk about a nice little topic. Bendiciones to everybody.
Okay. Thank you.
You're
Pero
welcome.
voy a, who is that?